Hi everyone, it's good to know you are there. Thank you for joining Smart Lesson Naija online virtual lesson for today with your regular host, Mr. Otaibe. Your presence in the lesson is appreciated. The subject is English and the theme is comprehension. And the topic is Introduction to Comprehension. Introduction to Comprehension. So, I want to look at Introduction to Comprehension that will expose us to the meaning of comprehension and, of course, the steps we follow when managing comprehension passages, as well as the rules associated with writing passage questions associated with comprehension. And so, all of that will come up in the lesson progress. And so let's kick off with the introduction that will expose us to the meaning of comprehension before we progress to look at the steps associated with managing comprehension passages. And so let's see what comprehension is about. Now, comprehension is the theme in English in which passages are read to answer questions as a way of testing a reader's understanding ability. Yes, it is one of the 5 themes in English. And in the theme, what we do is we read passages and then answer questions that follow up. And the whole adventure is used in assessing readers' understanding ability. And so, we read passages and answer questions in comprehension as a section of English. Remember, the other themes in English are grammar, vocabulary, then we have speech, and then composition. And so the 5th one, which is comprehension, is what we are engaging on the platform of its introduction. And so comprehension again is the theme in English in which passages are read to answer questions. For what objective? To assess the level of understanding of the reader. And so that's comprehension. And now let's make progress to the next section of the lesson, which is steps in handling comprehension passages. How do we manage comprehension passages? When we are giving comprehension passages in exam, how do we manage the passages? So I want to review the steps, the procedure, so that it can always be applied, it can always be utilized for us to settle for good results. And so below are the steps. We want to take them one after the other, and as we do, want to take note of them so that we can always put them to use when handling comprehension passages. Now, the first step is read through the passage quickly to get an idea of what the passage is talking about. And so what you do is you quickly read through the passage. When you are given the question paper that has the comprehension passage, what you do is quickly read through the comprehension passage so that you get an idea of what the passage is talking about. Reading through quickly will tell you whether the comprehension passage is talking about politics, is talking about education, is talking about another area of life, so that at least you know what you are working with. And so that's the first step. You read through the passage quickly to have a glimpse, to have an idea of what the passage is talking about. Then the second step is read the questions under the passage and keep them consciously. So when you have read through the passage quickly, the next thing is read through the questions that are printed under the passage. And then when you read through the questions, you keep them in your mind. That's what we mean by keep them consciously. You keep the questions in your mind. The questions should be resonating in your consciousness. The questions should be going through your mind, so that as you are doing your second reading, then it will be telling you that this is the potential answer to a particular question among them. And so that's step 2. You read the questions under the passage and keep them consciously. That is, put them in your mind as you do the second reading, which is step 3. And so step 3 says, read the passage again, this time attentively. Now, it's time for you to read the passage well. Yes, you read it attentively. You pay attention to even the minutest details that will be needed for you to answer the questions that are in your mind already, having read through them in step 2. And so you read through the passage again, this time attentively, and take note of points that are potential answers to the questions under the passage. Remember, you have read through the questions. They are running your mind consciously. And so as you are reading thoroughly now, as you are reading through the passage again thoroughly, then the questions running through your mind will be telling you that, okay, this is a point that will apply to one of the questions that you've read through. And so it will be directing you to the answers potentially, and you'll be fast in mobilizing them when you come back to start printing or picking your answers. And so that's that for that step. Then the last step is to answer the questions under the passage in the order in which they are featured. And so, having read through the passage thoroughly and having taken notes of potential answers to the questions, then it will not be time to answer the questions. And comprehension passages, they usually pull questions in two formats. The questions are either objective questions, that is A, B, C, D, MCQS, or it could be that you are going to write the answers. Yes, essay answers. Yes, so it's either you are writing the answers in the form of essay answers, or you are going to answer the questions as MCQS, that is multiple choice questions, or the one we call objectives. And so whichever way you answer the questions under the passage using the points you have gathered when you did your second reading that was thorough. And so that's as to the steps we follow when managing comprehension passages in exam or other platform of assessment. And so we now make progress now to the next section of the lesson, talking of rules of answering comprehension passage questions. So what are the rules we obey when answering comprehension passage questions? We want to quickly go through them so that the rules will always guide us to pick our questions, that's for MCQS, or to print or write our questions, talking of answers rather, to print or write our answers, talking of answers to essay questions rather, answers to essay questions. And so if it's essay questions, we have rules guiding how the answers are written. Then if it's also MCQS, to an extent, we also have rules guiding how the answers are picked. And so we want to go through the rules so that we become acquainted with them, and they will always serve to guide us in picking answers for MCQ questions or writing answers for that's essay answers for questions that require writing the answers. And so let's go through them. We have them here as 7 rules among others, but these are the key rules that we must not violate when answering comprehension passage questions. And so the first one says, pick only the facts in the passage and not facts outside the passage. Yes, when answering passage questions, we pick only the facts the examiner featured in the passage, not the facts you know outside the passage. Imagine a passage is talking about characteristics of living things, and the passage said living things carry out nutrition, that is, they take in food. Then living things respire, that is, taking respiratory gases to break down food inside the cell. Then living things grow, that is, increase in size. And the examiner is asking as one of the questions, State three properties of living things. And because you are a basic science student that knows that living things have other properties like irritability, excretion, death, competition, and so many others, then you now leave the point in the passage. Then you are not telling the examiners the characteristics of living things include one, death, two, the ones that are not mentioned. You will fail the answer. It's not correct. You work only with the points in the passage. And if you know other points that are correct with respect to the issue that the passage is talking about, you don't bring it in because it is not in the passage. We work only with the point in the passage. We work only with the point in the passage. And sometimes, even when a passage lies, a passage you are working with lies, it's not saying the truth, you present your answer as lies as well. Yes, because that is what you have on ground. Imagine a passage is saying Nigeria practices military system of government. In this system of government, we have, and it continues like that. And the passage is now asking, what system of government does Nigeria practice? Because you know it's democracy, then you now write for the examiner, Nigeria practices democracy. You fail the answer because the passage is not saying that. The passage never said that. And so even when the passage has lied by saying that Nigeria practices military, that's the same lie you present as an answer because you are working with the passage information. We want to take note of that. Then the second point is paraphrase your answer. What does that mean? That is, write it in your own words as much as possible. So even if you are getting your answer from the passage directly, you are not required to lift the answer, to lift the point the way it's appearing in the passage. Yes, Nigeria practices a democratic system of government. Okay, and now the question is asking, what system of government does Nigeria practice? Then you still lift it like this, Nigeria practices democratic system of government. No, you can say Nigeria's system of government is democracy. You have written it in your own words. Nigeria's system of government is democracy. You write it in your own words. You don't need to lift it the way it is in the passage. You use your own words to express the idea, provided the message is the same, the point is not distorted. That's what we're talking about in point number 2. Then rule number 3, an answer must be written as a sentence and not a phrase. Yes, we don't write the answer to a question as a phrase. Instead, we write it as a full sentence. Yes, what system of government does Nigeria practice? Then you now write number 3 as the answer. Now you say democracy. You fail it. It's not correct. You must state it as a sentence. You write Nigeria practices democracy if that's how you want to put it. So you don't write answer to questions like what, why, when. You don't write them as a single word or as a phrase. No, instead, you write it as a full sentence that must have a subject, a verb, and an object. We want to take note of that. Nigeria practices democracy. Nigeria subject, practices is the verb, then democracy objects. Instead of saying just democracy, and it's not a sentence. And so passage answers to questions, especially questions like why, how, when, what, we usually present them as full sentences, not as phrases. We write the answers as full sentences, not as phrases or single words. We don't write them as single words. We don't write them as phrases. Instead, we write them as full sentences. Your answer must have a subject, a verb, and an object to make a sentence. So that's that for that. Then the next one, do not include the question sentence in your answer. Do not include the question sentence in your answer. What does that mean? The sentence the examiner is using to ask the question, don't write it to introduce your answer. Don't write it as part of your answer. An examiner is asking the passage, what system of government does Nigeria practice? Then you now repeat it. The system of government that Nigeria practices is no. You will fail it. You don't repeat the sentence in the question of the examiner. Instead, express yourself without the sentence of the question. And so a smart student will say, Nigeria practices democracy, not the system of government that Nigeria practices is. No, you don't need that part that is in the question. Go straight to your point, provided the point is presented as a sentence. You don't need to read again the way the question command of the examiner is not necessary in your answer. Why does, okay, let me put it like, when did Nigeria start practicing democracy? Then you now say, the time that Nigeria started practicing democracy is, no, it's not needed. Go straight. Nigeria started practicing democracy, then you state the year. So that's what we're talking about. So we don't repeat the question sentence in our answer. No, we go straight to the point and express it as a sentence. Then we go to the next one. Your answer must agree with the tense and the voice of the question. The tense and the voice of the question. Let's take the first one, tense. When we say tense, we have three basic types of tense: past tense, present tense, and future tense. So if an examiner asks a question in the present tense, your answer will also be in present tense. What system of government does Nigeria practice? That's a present tense question. And so you tell the examiner, Nigeria practices. So that's a present tense answer. Then, what if the examiner is saying, what system of government did Nigeria practice? Then, you now tell the examiner that Nigeria had practice. Nigeria had practice. You are not referring to the past. Or Nigeria practiced, provided it's referring to the past because it is past tense. Nigeria practiced because he said, what system of government did Nigeria practice? Possibly he's referring to a particular time. So you now say Nigeria practiced, not practices, because practices is for present tense. Or is there an examiner that is putting it in the future tense? When will the current administration end? When will the current administration end? Then you now say the current administration is ending, or the current administration ends. No, the current administration will end. Although if you say the current administration ends and you now state a specific time in the future, to an extent it still refers to future. But to avoid ambiguity, to avoid confusion, put it the way the question was presented. When will the current administration end? You now say the current administration will end. Remember, that one does not mean you are repeating the question command. Repeating question command is, the time the current administration will end is, that's the bad one that we should not do. So when you say the current administration will end, then you state the time. Then you are following the tense of the question. So the tense of the question must agree with the tense of your answer. They must be the same. Past tense question, past tense answer. Present tense question, present tense answer. Future tense question, future tense answer. Then what of voice? Voice has to do with whether the sentence of the question is in active voice or passive voice. Active voice or passive voice. We have two types of voices in terms of how sentences are presented. We have passive voices, then we have active voices. Now, when we say passive voice, a passive voice is a voice in which the subject is appearing after the verb. Whereas an active voice is a voice in which the subject is appearing before the verb. Let's take some examples. The book is on the table. No, I will not be able to revise that one. Let me use another sentence. The charger has been taken. The charger has been taken. by, the charger has been taken by James. The charger has been taken by James. Who is doing the action? Is James, and it's appearing after the subject. That's a passive voice. That's a passive voice. But somebody that will not write it as James has taken the charger, that's active voice, because the doer of the action is appearing before the action. James has taken the charger, that's an active voice. But when you now say the charger has been taken by James, that's a passive voice. And so, if an examiner asks, who has taken the charger? Then you tell the examiner, who has taken the charger? That's an active voice. So you tell the examiner, James has taken the charger. But if the examiner now puts it as, the charger was taken by whom? Then you now say, the charger was taken by James. And so the voice in which the examiner brings the question must be the same as the voice in which you are presenting your answer. That's what we're talking about. It's a rule. And so we want to take note of that. Then another rule is that you avoid spelling errors. Make sure the words you are using to present your answer for written answers are well spelled. They should be spelled correctly. You should be conscious of your spellings to ensure that there are no errors. And the last one there says, avoid needless grammar and confusing sentences. Instead, use simple and correct sentences in your answer. Don't make your sentences clumsy. If you're answering a particular question, use simple sentence and use plain words that are clear, not high-sounding grammar that will make your answer clumsy. Use simple vocabulary. Use simple English, simple words, not high-sounding words. And don't use complex sentences that will muddle the idea. Instead, use plain, simple sentence that will establish clarity. And so these are the rules that guide us when writing answers in comprehension passages. And so we want to take note of them so that we always work with them. That's the size of the lesson. On the evaluation stage now, you are recommended to log on to the lesson CBT that has been published to drill you on the lesson so that it will help to sink down the points and they become part of you permanently. So answer the questions, let's have your grades, and we'll pick it up from there. I'll see you in the next lesson series. Let's make time together again to learn something new on a different subject platform.